87% of realtors that get into the business get out of the business after 2 years. That does not exist in our world.
We have massive visions around growing our businesses, and we are always looking to add talent to our world. We do everything in our power to ensure the people we surround ourselves with defy the odds, get into production, and build massive lives for themselves.
We have interviewed some of the top realtors in the world. If you're a new realtor, a top producer, or CEO of a mega team, SalesBeast Podcast is your blueprint for success.
With locations all across Canada, reach out to us to talk about partnership and opportunities. We are looking forward to it.
Yes, I'm the boss.
Welcome back to another episode of SalesBeast Podcast, and today I am joined by the Matt Campoli, and I want to say he branded himself as a real estate entrepreneur, an Airbnb buff. He's also the host of the Price to Sell podcast and the founder of Residency Group with EXP. I feel blessed to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, yeah, it's been a while. I know we probably booked this back a couple months ago, and finally we're here today. So why don't we get started? I'd love for you to kind of walk me through your journey into the business, what you've done, where you started, and where you're at today.
Yeah, so I started off by being born. So that happened.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting journey, actually. It wasn't like linear at all. It was everything just kind of happened how it happened. Initially wanted to be a police officer, and then didn't want to be a police officer, and then didn't know what I wanted to do, and then was still in university, just figuring it all out, and studied my passion, which is history. Then I thought, what would I really do with history? Maybe I can teach it, because I enjoy talking about it. So I was going to become a teacher. And then at that time, I started to self-develop a lot and gain some confidence in myself and realize there's other opportunities out there. So while being in school, I started a barber business, and that woke up the entrepreneur in me, realizing that I don't need to work for anybody. I can actually maintain something on my own because of who I am, and people are coming to see me not only for the haircuts, but also for the experience. They want to laugh, they're having a good time. It's getting a lot of good feedback for just me being myself. So I figured I started to look into the audience I built around the barber business and the amount of clients I had. And I knew I didn't want to sit there with clippers for the rest of my life, or stand there, I should say. So I thought, how can I leverage this network? And at that exact time in my life, my mother purchased her home, her first home, because we were always renting growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the showing with her, and I saw the realtor pull up in his Mustang and do his thing. And then I'm like, wow, this is a job. So I started to research what do realtors make, and I liked the idea of no ceiling. And then I just put two and two together, like, okay, I have this amazing network. Everyone's like circa 23 years old, 24 years old, probably going to be buying a house in the next 5 years. Let me get ahead of this wave. So I got my license, and then here I am.
Okay, but wait, there's definitely more since you got your license, right? I'm going to come back to some of the things that you mentioned, but you got your license, that was about 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And then what happened? So walk me through your first couple of years.
Okay, so again, studied history. I never took an entrepreneur class, never took a business class. I didn't know how to operate Excel. I didn't know what an interest rate was. Like, I was like super just winging it. And I was just a very good people person. I was really good at establishing relationships. So the challenge for me was getting over the mindset of like, wow, I know nothing about this business at all. And here I am selling it somehow. So I had to strap myself with mentors. I put myself on a team right away, and I gave up a lot of my commission to learn and to have things, to see things done properly. And I'd recommend that to anybody. But the first year it wasn't bad. Like, it was slow starts, like the average, like you don't do a deal for the first 6 months, and then bang, I got a deal done, and then ended up doing 9 in year 1, which is pretty cool. And those are buys and sells. So it was a decent first year. And then I started to just see what I liked doing, and I was very quick on Instagram right away. I was told, don't waste your time on there. You're never going to sell anything on there. And I listened to that, but still wanted to post in the background. And I started to build this brand out. And then by year 3 is when things started to really take shape. I started to have a presence that was being discovered by many on social media. People started to reach out to me through social media. Business actually started to come in on social media, and I knew I was onto something. So I just went full force on the social side while still producing at a high level, and merged the two together. It's like the perfect marriage. And now here we are.
Here you are. Here you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely push the envelope in some aspects, but I think that also brings you a lot of the success that you've built. And now you have a team. You just recently started your team this year, correct?
Yeah, it's a small little team, a lot of growing pains, a lot of learning, but we're all in it together. So it's been good. And then I recently switched to EXP as well. So that was a big change for me, really hard, but a lot of long-term value for sure. So
Had you been with the same company like your whole career up until you just made the move?
pretty much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
transitions are tough for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was an like amazing place, right? Like it was like family to me. So it wasn't not easy at all. Yeah.
Well, kudos to you. I feel like I've been following your journey through social media. I mean, that's how I got to know you and found you through social media. So that's super exciting, and glad to I have the full circle of actually meeting you, even though it's virtually. I'm sure we'll meet each other
Yeah.
eventually.
We
Now,
will.
I think one of the best ways to learn from each other is through mistakes or failures, if you want to call it that. So what do you feel like was the biggest mistake or lesson that you had in the business?
In real estate,
Yeah.
probably being a yes man. Yeah, I suffered from that for a while. I'm definitely a people pleaser. I feel like that's an identity I've taken on, since from childhood experiences and things like that. So I've always been the guy that wanted people to like me, and if saying no meant they didn't like me, I wouldn't say no. So a lot of the times, whatever clients wanted to hear, I'd be like, yeah, sure, okay, you want to list for that price, sure. So I learned really early that is not the route to go as a realtor. You need to set boundaries and set expectations and say no. And if it doesn't make sense, just don't take it on. So I spun my wheels quite a bit in the beginning by just trying to be that likable guy. And now I'm the complete opposite. So yeah, that was definitely a big one.
Well, every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. I think that was a big lesson for me too. And even till recently, I think everyone struggles with it. We want to please people. That's like in our nature to be good and to like do good and provide a good service.
Mhm.
But you're wasting your time, you're wasting your energy by not focusing on your highest and best use. So now, how are you implementing that mindset in your business with both your team and the individuals around you?
Yeah, so I mean, radical transparency about everything. Like even if it's like a hard conversation, I've learned to just have it, get over with. If they don't like it, it is what it is. It's better that you're being straight up from the beginning with whether it's with colleagues or clients versus coming out and just telling people what they want to hear and telling clients what they want to hear just to get a listing, right? Or working with a buyer for a year plus, just roaming around the city when deep down that it's not in their budget, or things just this isn't ever going to work for them.
Mhm.
Being able to have that hard conversation is really crucial.
Yeah, I mean, directness is the best approach, especially in this business.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. So I wanted to pivot a little bit and talk a little bit about your Instagram and the content that you're building. I feel like you follow an entertainment-based content focus, and you're really just trying to appeal to the masses. You're really trying to not necessarily be all business, but create content that people want to watch. So where do you feel like you drive a lot of your inspiration from when you're doing that?
I mean, a lot of it comes from me. I mean, I'm growing up, I always wanted to be an actor, TV shows or movies, like as a child. And then I had the decision. My mom's like, "Hey, to either hockey or acting." So I got an agent to do commercials. So we can only afford one. So I'm like, okay, I'll play hockey with my friends. But there was always that deep-rooted like connection to wanting to just be on camera and do funny things and just put myself out there. So a lot of it is just like my ideas, like how can I make real estate fun? What can I do to not do the same old boring real estate video? How can I elevate this this video with an idea, maybe something? Do I leverage a trending thing? Do I act as a certain character in this listing and, you know, make it entertaining? So that was the approach I took early on when I made my first video that I thought I would get fired with. But ever since that one took off, I'm like, okay, I'm onto something here. Let me just keep being me, of how I've always wanted to be on camera, living out this little childhood dream of mine. And yeah, like whatever kind of comes my way, I'll go and do it. So
That's awesome. You
yeah.
have a very creative mind, and I know you studied you had a Bachelor of Arts from York University. So
Yeah.
I mean, that really shows in what you're doing, like the creative aspect. That's awesome. Now from interviewing some of the top agents in Canada to having Ryan Serhant on your podcast, what inspired you to put the podcast together?
So I had a podcast right before the pandemic. A buddy of mine in 2019, my friend Zoe, we were in Tulum. And at that time, you know, my business was doing well. People knew who I was. And I had a lot of people my age, younger, in and around our group of friends, and maybe even just acquaintances, were hitting me up and hitting him up because he was excelling in his respective field. Just asking questions like, hey, like, can I get your opinion on this? Or, hey, like, I feel stuck. And, you know, it was all these like kind of, you know, people are looking for inspiration and help. So we thought, like, let's put together a podcast and bring on some entrepreneurs around Toronto. And we called it the It's Simple podcast. And that was our first podcast. We just recently just kind of shut it down. But from that, I had this podcast experience, and then my partners for a Place to Sell reached out, said, hey, Matt, we're doing a real estate podcast. You're the guy. Partner up with us. Let's do this thing. There's nothing that exists in Toronto yet. This is 2021. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do it. I'm way too busy. And he's like, man, do not let yourself down. He's like, I know you, you know me. I'm not taking no as an answer. So thank God I went through with it. And at the time I felt like this is going to be such a burden, so much more time and energy has to be spent on, you know, I'm already burnt out, but it was the best thing I did. And yeah, so that's how it came to be. I'm blessed to have them as partners because they're a whole creative agency. So I have all of their support. We have a team of 7 now. So it's been a fun ride. That's
huge. Definitely inspiring. Definitely inspiring. Yeah. What do you think has been your favorite guest on the podcast so far, if you feel comfortable sharing?
Definitely Ryan.
I figured.
Yeah, he's like my idol, you know, like when I got into real estate, I read all of his books. I would just study him and watch him. And I think what he does is he's just a genius beyond just being a realtor, you know?
He's an enigma. Like he's a character.
Yeah, exactly. And he just took his leverage from $1 million listing and just like totally catapulted and leveraged that and just went double down on everything. Where a lot of the other cast members didn't really do the same, you know, they kind of had their moments of glory and then fizzled. He doubled down. And I thought that was super genius and smart. So yeah, definitely Ryan. He was, and going to New York and doing it in his office was like a very cool experience as well.
Oh, for sure. I remember first watching $1 Million Listings like way before I even got into real estate, and him like dressing up as a ballerina at one of his open houses. Like you can't forget that, versus maybe some of the other characters, you're not going to remember them, but you can't forget that.
Exactly. Over and above.
Over and above.
Yeah.
What have been some of your biggest lessons from doing the podcast? I know I've learned a lot, and I shared with you kind of our vision from creating our podcast, but for you, what do you feel like you've learned most going through that process?
Well, I think, like you said, just being a student on the couch, aka the host, and listening to how everyone handles their business. So I've been like a sponge. That's been invaluable. Like it's been the amount of value I've taken from that for free. It's just been crazy. Like as an example, I sat down with Ryan for an hour for free.
Yeah.
A podcast, right? So podcasting is like that tool where where I might have to get one-on-one time with him, I probably have to pay 10 grand, you know? And here I am, it's still one-on-one time, but in the form of a podcast. So that's been a really good takeaway. Secondly, the networking has been awesome. Like getting to meet all my guests and building rapport with them off camera. That's been incredibly helpful for the business, sourcing off-market opportunities for clients, having a really big agent network now. Like my entire following is realtors. So, I mean, it's not like, okay, people say like, oh, how are you monetizing off your podcast? And so many other ways versus just like a consumer coming to me from the podcast and saying, hey, Matt, I want to buy a house because I heard you. I still get that. But I also have established such incredible rapport with this huge network of agents in our industry. And it's like a hack, right?
Well, two things to that. Like, number one, I think a lesson that you probably had as well is like, don't put anybody on a pedestal. Like, everyone is human and wants to share and is learning just like we are. So whatever guests you have on, I'm sure they're willing to share just as much as you're willing to share with them.
Yeah.
And then the other thing too is like, what kind of expectations are you setting from the content that you're putting out there? I think the second you start setting expectations and wanting something in return, like monetary or whatever, that's when you're actually going to push those things away from you versus not having any expectations and just allowing things to flow to you. Well, you're going to get business regardless. It's just whether it's through your podcast or your content, it's going to come, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a visibility thing too, right? So if you're everywhere, all the time, on all these different platforms, as a guest, as a host, posting videos, YouTube, wherever, it's like just that visibility is also crucial because you're being seen by everybody. And it's like, hey, someone saw you last month here, and then bang, you pop up 2 months later, and now you have that face that people are consistently. You become familiar, right? So that helps in so many doors open up that way.
100%. I had a conversation.
An expectation, like no expectations is the best way about it. Yeah.
No expectations. I had a conversation with one of my coaching clients literally like 30 minutes before this. And she was reading a book, and in the book it talked about when you want to influence people, create a following, and creating great content, you have to disturb and you have to inspire. And I think you're doing a great job of that. Like you said, you're everywhere, which to some people can be a lot, but at the same time, you're keeping yourself top of mind. And then through the brands that you're building, the things that you're doing, you're inspiring people.
Yeah.
That's great job. I love it. Now, I wanted to ask you about Florida. So I know that I attended one of your events, the Investing in Florida event, and I wanted to ask you a little bit around what attracted you there initially, and what do you think are some of those opportunities that are not only still there, but will be there in the future?
Yeah. So, I mean, the ROI in Florida just makes a lot more sense. I bought a house for the same price as like a 2-bedroom condo downtown. You know what I mean? So like conversion rate aside, like the value you get, and I bought a premium home, like it's 2 years old in Fort Lauderdale. You don't even have to go that expensive, right? So in regards to like affordability, which is a huge problem here, it's really manageable to invest in Florida. And I think since the pandemic, the amount of demand that's been flowing through Florida and has been amazing. And they've seen a huge uptick in their values. On top of that too, at the conventional rents there are really, really strong. So the ability to cash flow is actually there, unlike GTA. It's incredibly hard, right, to get a good cap rate. And I do the Airbnb game, which has its pros and cons depending on the area you're in. But where I am, like you can do it all year round, no limitations. So I do it here in Toronto as well. There's a lot of red tape. There's rules, regulations to navigate. But down in Fort Lauderdale, it's just open season. Anyone can come anytime. I can just have that thing as a rotating door and just generating as much income as possible, while the value is also going up as well. So it's one of the states. This is what I was told. I haven't looked into this myself, but I've been told that Florida has been one of those states that has essentially been able to withstand all the economical things that are happening right now, whereas a lot of other states have taken hits in their price and their values. Florida has remained pretty strong. So and then from a landlord perspective, like what we deal with here in Ontario, it's ridiculous. Over there, if tenant doesn't pay you, cops show up at the door, kick them out.
There's no time frame. It's just like whenever they don't pay.
Yeah, you didn't pay me, okay. There might be a time frame. I'm not sure, but I don't think it's anything crazy. Maybe a month. Maybe like 30 days, and then cops will literally come there and it's like, hey, this is what's going on. Whereas here, you know how it is. It's insane.
Yeah, I see huge advantages, and I mean, we have to start thinking outside of just our country. There's limited land, there's limited opportunities here, and I think there's so much more happening in the world. We're looking internationally, we're looking in other countries in South America. Are there any other places that you're starting to explore right now?
I mean, Dubai's been a hot topic. I think a lot of people think it's like very expensive out there, and it can be, but it's pretty on par with a lot of our pricing here. And just Dubai and where it's headed, just seems very promising. And the other parts surrounding Dubai, a lot of investment opportunities. So I haven't been there though. It's something that I'd want to go there first and see. But and I'm hearing good things about some of our provinces too, right? Like Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Saskatchewan, in regards to cash flowing assets. So yeah, definitely probably between up provincial investing and then maybe out in Dubai as well.
Well, we'll have to have you on for like a follow-up once you decide to invest somewhere else.
Yeah, I will. You'll see it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I wanted to kind of push a little bit into the team side. So this is your first time building a team, creating a team, and putting people together. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So what have been some of the awesome things about putting a team together, and what have been some of the challenges?
Awesome things. I mean, it's good to have, it's a fun culture. It's good to be working with a group. It's good to, host your weekly meetings and trainings and have everyone come in and kind of vibe off each other. Also, like as a team lead, the leverage is super powerful. So now having people that can, help me with a lot of day-to-days that I don't have time to do anymore. That's amazing. Challenges though is definitely like, as a team lead, you definitely need to be ready to consistently be there, which I am. It's just, it does take time. So it just has to make sense for anyone looking to start a team. They want to make sure that they're operating an actual business that makes sense and it's profitable. Because there's a lot of teams out there that on paper it's like, wow, they did this much volume, but their profit margin's like this.
Or like negative in the whole.
Or like negative, yeah, like the amount of overhead and everything. So I think being set up properly and really doing your research and talking to a lot of people who have teams early on is crucial. I kind of did that, but not really. But I have a coach now who's run us a very successful team, and he's helping me kind of remodel everything right now because I definitely initially started it on the wrong foot. So backpedaling a little bit, building the foundation so it's literally like crack proof, and then we're going to build it from there. So that's been my year of just really systemizing, because how I want to operate is I don't want to necessarily sell real estate forever. Especially like 7 years in, I'm just looking like another 7 years from now and trying to figure out the life I want to lead. And I think having a well-oiled machine operating like seamlessly that can produce deals, I can still be involved, but not 100% of the time. Maybe just handle my listings, buyers are all being taken care of, and then I can work on the business development, because that's what I really like to do. I really like to do business development opportunities and just the whole growth parts of things, and then having the whole team being able to support that. So
yeah, I think that's one of the overlooked aspects of the business is, I mean, if we're thinking about real estate as an actual business, we should be able to have our net worth statement and be able to set it as an asset on that net worth statement. But a lot of people don't think about it that way. They don't think about their business as a business. And so like to have a business, you need one of two things, right? You need a database or systems. And I would say, tell me if I'm wrong, but 99% of the people in this business don't have either.
yeah.
So it's challenging, but I mean, hopefully the people listening to this podcast and to your podcast as well are the people that are business minded, because those are the people that are not only surviving in this business, but they're thriving year after year. When you don't have
the ones who have systems right now in this downturn that we're seeing 50% of sales available to us as agents, and there's more agents. Yeah. So, but you're seeing the same consistent people put out the same consistent numbers, it's because their systems are just full force and working, right?
Yeah, they're designed not to ride a roller coaster. They're designed
exactly. Just
build it.
just foolproof. So it's so important. So important.
Yeah, I love that. I think you're doing the right thing. Like, to go back, the amount of times we had like iterations or versions of our teams, probably hundreds, where we had to break something down, start something from scratch, build it back up. But you're doing things in the right way, where you're actually modeling after someone or a model or a system that has already worked successfully, rather than trying to start something from scratch.
Yeah.
Exactly. You mentioned culture. That's like my favorite part of having teams and being in business with other individuals. What kind of culture are you trying to build with residency?
You know, I right now we're putting together a lot of our core values to then figure out a lot of the things that we're going to do to help with the culture. But like a lot of the people that are with us right now, we all kind of know each other, so there's definitely a dynamic that has already existed, and a lot of experiences that have happened with each other beforehand. So it's just a fun time, you know. Everyone comes in, it's a good vibe, good energy. Everyone's willing to help, which is awesome. I definitely want to start incorporating monthly things with the team, where we're doing stuff outside of real estate, and you know, having a laugh, having a good time, enjoying whatever it is for that month. I think that's very important. I think it doesn't have to be business all the time. And any realtor would know we hate talking about real estate.
Yeah.
So if we could step away from that as a collective, I think it would be super powerful for the long run.
Yeah, I love that. There's a really great book, and I've read this so many times. I don't know if you read this book by Patrick Lencioni, The Ideal Team Player.
No.
You should read it. It's a great model for how to not only look for the right individuals to bring into your business, but also the qualities that you should incorporate, especially if you're working on your core values right now. I think that really helped us when we were starting, but also now as we have kind of different, like I told you, iterations of the teams, that still remains the foundation of everything.
Building a team player.
The ideal team player.
Oh, the ideal team player.
Mm-hmm.
I'm writing it down.
Cool. The other one is 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, also a great book. Same author.
All right. Done. Thank you.
No problem. So it's been great having you on the podcast. I know you're a busy guy, but ultimately it's been great learning from you and having you here with us today. Now, before I let you go, we ask all of our guests the same question at the end of the podcast. Who do you know that we should have on SalesBees podcast?
Ooh, good one. An awesome guest, I think, would do really well with you guys. Have you had Justin Conacow on yet?
Not yet. We should have him.
Talk to Justin.
I'm writing that down. Anyone else?
He's the guy who set me up with Ryan Serhant, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'd love to have him on. And the last question I want to ask you, because I didn't come back to this, but at the beginning you talked about self-development a lot. So what is a book or a podcast or any kind of recommendation to our listeners that you're into right now?
So, well, funny, right now I'm reading the Bible, actually. It's new for me. But the couple of books that have like really impacted me, obviously Think and Grow Rich, read multiple times. Supreme Influence by Nayurka.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good. What's another recent one I just read?
Have you read the 48 Laws of Power? You would probably like that one.
No, I haven't. I've heard a lot of good things, though. I've heard a lot of good things. Things No One Else Can Teach Us was a very good book as well. Working with the Law.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a law of attraction guy. But yeah, like Untethered Soul. I just feel like it's very important to understand yourself in this business, and like how you operate and how your mind works, and like what moves you, what doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
because
What
you
kind
need
of standards you set for yourself too as a human?
yeah yeah you got to be a rock, right?
Mhm.
So it's very easy to get moved. So I think mindset's like incredibly important. And then for podcasts that I really enjoy listening to,
Well, price to sell. We got to shout out price to sell.
besides price to sell, I love hearing my own voice every day. But Ed Milet show is really good.
Yeah.
Impact Theory, I like a lot as well. Vedros Kulian, he's really good. And Sales Beast.
And Sales Beast. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I love ending on that note because proximity is power. And if you want to be somewhere in 5 years, it's all about who you surround yourself with, the books that you read, and the podcasts that you listen to. So thanks for joining us, Matt. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Every day I'm hustling, every day I'm hustling, every day I'm hustling, every day I'm hustling.